Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for giving me the privilege of being here to visit with you for a few minutes. First of all, it's a little daunting to follow Colonel Grossman. I've done this a number of times, and it's never any easier. I stand back there, I listen to his presentation each and every time because I get something else out of it every single time. He's terrific. Colonel, thank you so much for what you do. You're awesome. Well, let me tell you a little bit about my story. I've been a policeman in Garland. May 22nd, this coming May 22nd, I'll celebrate my 40th anniversary with the department, which is, when I say it out loud, it makes me, it blows my mind too. Garland is a great town. It's a great place. It's a suburb of Dallas. We border some other cities there. It's about, we're approaching 300,000 people, 57 square miles. It's a big city. It's like the 12th largest city in the state of Texas. So it's not a little bitty town. And we have some resources, and we have a great police department. But more importantly, we have great people who live in Garland, Texas. Garland is a kind of a blue-collar kind of place. A lot of hard-working, great Americans. I'm proud to be somebody that's from Garland, Texas. I can tell you that right now. I look around the room here, I see the same kinds of faces that I see in Garland, Texas, right here in Omaha, Nebraska. Anyway, what had happened was, back in February of 2015, we had a program at this, the Curtis Culwell Center. It's a Garland Independent School District building. It was built on public funds, so it's used by any number of different entities. They had a group called World Vision, Sound Vision, not World Vision, Sound Vision. It's basically a Muslim organization, and they would have meetings there on occasion. They had done it on several occasions, and this was a large gathering. And as it turns out, they had two keynote speakers that were rather controversial. One of them was a non-indicted co-conspirator in the World Trade Center bombing, and the other was a guy that had been quoted on the internet many times about the necessity of jihad and all these kind of things. Well, Garland, Texas, the great Americans in Garland, Texas took some exception to that, to say the least. So we had, the event went on. We had a lot of protests. We had the group of Muslim folks kind of gathered over here. We had the Christian and other religious denominations over here. And then we had the good old boys with the pickup trucks with the rebel flags in the back driving around to stir up the pot. I told the colonel, I said, I think they were all from Arkansas, but I wasn't sure. Anyway, amazingly enough, that went without much of a hitch. There was a lot of tension in the air, but nothing really happened. Well, shortly after that, I mean, we had no incidents, no arrests, nothing. Shortly after that, in France, the Charlie Hebdo massacre occurred. And this inspired a promoter in New York named Pamela Geller. She said, this is an assault on our freedom of speech. We can't kowtow to these terrorists, and she decides to promote this Draw the Profit art contest and pay a prize to the best artist rendering and so on and so forth. Well, needless to say, that's just kind of waving it, a red flag at a bull, right? I mean, we knew there was great potential for some problems. We put together a rather complex safety plan. We had a lot of people in place. There in the yellow where it says West Entrance there, that's where I was assigned to be. The main entrance was kind of further away from me. So I was kind of out there in no man's land. But one of our SWAT lieutenants that put this plan together, a great guy, West Point grad, smart man. He and I are good friends, and he told me, he said, hey, I got a good spot for you over here. I said, great. He said, all you got to do is, you just got to, the only people coming in your entrance are going to be the promoter and her safety team, their guest speaker, there's a politician from the Netherlands, and his safety team, and a caterer. And everything went without a hitch. We did countdowns. Everything went great, except the wrong caterer showed up, and I think I kind of scared him, but he got over it. Anyway, All went well. I got there about 1:30 in the afternoon. About 6:45, somebody announced on the radio, it looks like it just ended. So myself, and there was one guy with me that was unarmed as security guard for the department. For the school district was there. So while I'm standing there, and you can see where that blue dot is, that's kind of where I was standing. I had that entrance open just enough for one car. That's my police car, my take-home car sitting there. And the car closest to the bottom is the bad guy car. This little black car pulls up rather abruptly and stops. And and for you law enforcement folks and pretty much everybody, you know when that little bit of hair stands up on the back of your neck? If you're not paying attention to that, you're foolish. There's a reason for that. Well, that's what happened to me. I said something wasn't right. I noticed they pulled up kind of in a funny place. They pulled up rather abruptly. It had out-of-state tags, which didn't turn out to be that big a deal because there were a lot of out-of-state tags there. But something just didn't look right. So as I'm standing there watching that, I see both doors open. It's a two-door car. I see both doors open. Both occupants of the vehicle exit at the same time. I can see the passenger side clearly. I can't see the driver's side because of the way the car's sitting. Obviously, I can see over the top of it. And the first thing I see is the barrel of a rifle coming out of the passenger side and wielding around my direction. Well, I immediately recognized the threat, obviously, and didn't hesitate and immediately engaged. I did have and that immediacy of engagement wasn't because I'm some triple trained super ninja kind of guy. I'm just a guy, right? But because of my training, that's why I immediately engaged. I drew my weapon. I carried a .45 caliber Glock. I drew my weapon, and to this day, I can't tell you who got the first round off. I don't know. But I immediately engaged this guy. I did have the conscious thought in my head, my only chance of survival in this gun battle is going to only be if I'm the aggressor in the battle. I have got to take the fight to them. As you can see, I'm standing and I have no cover available. There's nowhere to retreat. So it's up to me to win this battle, not to have them lose. It's for me to win, right? So I immediately engaged. I fired several rounds on the passenger, and he goes down pretty rapidly. Okay? So then once I fired on him, I immediately now have to acquire the driver who's coming around the back of the car. His rifle's up. He's firing at the unarmed security guard, my decoy. Anyway, he's firing, and the security guard is trying to become very small in a hurry, and he's really in a tough spot. I fired several rounds at the driver. The driver goes down. As soon as he goes down, he kind of drops his rifle. He's less of a threat. I readdress my attention to the passenger. He's still on the ground. He's still wiggling around. I fired other rounds on him. He had his hands up near his throat and up near his chest and moving his hands around. It looked like he might be trying to pull a pin or push a button. We had talked about IEDs in briefings and those kind of things, so I didn't know whether they might be rigged, car might be rigged. Obviously, he's still a viable threat. Fired several more rounds on him. Reacquired the driver, who hadn't really done a whole lot, but I had some bullets left, and in the interest of thoroughness, thought I better make this complete. So I fired till my weapon ran dry. I tactically reloaded, and I turned back to the passenger, who's still moving around a little bit, still a threat as far as I'm concerned, and I'm walking toward him because I'm going to make sure that threat's completely eliminated. By that time, help had arrived, and there were officers that were behind my car taking place of cover, and there was another vehicle in front of the bad guy's car, but a little ways down the road that had taken a position with cover. And those guys are trying to get my attention as I'm approaching the passenger. I was in kind of I was in a different zone at that moment. And I tell people, it's kind of like when my wife's talking to me during the Cowboys game. I heard something going on back there, but I really wasn't getting it, right? Well, they finally got my attention and brought me back to a place of safety, and we made sure that both threats were completely eliminated. And, here I am by the grace of God. Now let me tell you what's important here. There's not a single person in this room that couldn't do exactly what I just did. Not a single person in this room. As I said earlier, I'm not some kind of super highly trained guy. I believe in training. I attend training, and I practice what I'm trained to do. Practice is probably the most important part. If you don't get the repetition, if I had to formulate a plan that day, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. So the important thing is you've got to seek the training, you got to pay attention to the training, and you've got to benefit from the training by practicing what you're trained to do. And that's whether it's firearms, defensive tactics, for those of you in law enforcement, so on, it may be report writing. Whatever it is that you're needing to practice and become better at, that's what you need to do. Because I didn't choose that moment. That moment chose me. And that's the way it normally works. We don't get to choose the moment very often. So when the moment chooses you, you need to be ready. And let me close with this, Colonel. I'm a man of faith, and I can tell you without any doubt that day, God reached down, he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to protect you, but you're going to have to take care of those guys. God had a plan for me that day, and God obviously has a plan for me beyond that day. And that's why I'm here today. And it's by the grace of God that I stand before you, and to him, that's where the glory goes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Colonel.
Well done, brother. Well done. Hooah.